Well, to help make sense of everything you've heard on the program so far and other stories making the headlines, I'm joined in the studio by the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, and also by Adebayo Ogori. He is a political analyst and the executive secretary of the Center for Social Justice, Equity and Transparency. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Prof, let me start with you. What do you make, or what are your general thoughts about what we discussed with our first guest?
Well, it's all interesting. Shegun showed me somebody who is very familiar in the public space, very rhetorical, an excited speaker, and of course looks a committed member of the People's Democratic Party. So always very interesting listening to him, and of course his passion is also admirable as a politician. But of course you also know that there's politics in the mix in everything that he said. Everything that he said, they may not necessarily be factual, but he seems convinced, seems persuaded in his pronouncements. And until you probably hear from the other side or from other interests before you can actually arrive at what the truth could be, even though it can be very, very difficult, finding the truth, more especially in the political space. But overall, I think it's a snowballing story. The processes are on, the preparation for the neck is going on, but we can really hope in the larger interest of the polity that PDP should be able to find some compromise, some consensus, so that they can steady their ship once more and become, a much more viable opposition to the ruling party, considering their illustrious history and considering the legacy of those who built the party. They need to preserve it. And of course, the fact that we still have some very credible politicians who have contributed immensely to the evolution of this country as members of the PDP. Okay. So all these things will add up, which is why the whole world will watch them, will wait for their neck, and see how they resolve matters, as the case could be. Right.
So I would ask you the same question.
Okay. I would first of all like to say that I was impressed with him and some of the things he said about the political party. I believe, like he said, that PDP is the biggest opposition right now, and they should be more active than they are. They should be the watchdog of the present APC government. They should keep them on their toes. They've not been there anyway because of the internal problems they've been having. I think it's actually appropriate for them to have a neck right now so that they can actually find a way going forward. They have been absent.
Talking about internal problems, apparently loyalty is a big issue. No party can thrive and survive and become an institution, a viable one, without loyalty.
Yeah, definitely. But you see, the concept of loyalty in political space is quite different, really. Or sometimes there's a lot of contention around it. Sometimes loyalty, sheepishness.
Loyalty to party.
Or loyalty to party. But yes, even so, sometimes they take loyalty to be the need for you to be sheepish or for you to act like a Lilliput. Somebody without a mindset, without a vision or a passion, or a vision or a mission, somebody who should be completely subservient, to the machinations of some principles, even though those principles have some, unsalutary ideas about nation building, or maybe about what the destination of the party should be like, But otherwise, loyalty is very, very necessary, especially in a situation where we crave for parties that are ideological, that are driven by ideas, driven by definite body of structures, of notions, around which they can imagine governance if they eventually get it. But for now, which is why we still think largely that the political parties are like special purpose vehicles, just vehicles to get people onto government, and by the time they could get into government, They do what they probably like, based on their own vision, their own imaginations, without any overarching philosophy, which will have been the party philosophy in the first instance, if there was loyalty or if there was a body of knowledge coordinated around the political parties. But as it is now, there seems to be the absence of this, which is why it looks haphazard, as the case could be, and which is why some of the things that Shegun was actually raising can become very problematic.
Right.
He was saying that they are a party, they produced it, they did this, they did that. I think the whole thing depends, largely depends on individuals.
Right.
The individuals performed with the determination to leave a legacy, not necessarily because they are working within the prism of a political party that is ideological. Political parties don't have definite ideologies. They are just propelled by the vision, the determination of individuals to leave legacies, as the case could be.
So let's stay on this issue of loyalty. Within the context of the anti-party activities that the party is suffering from, because that's a problem for the party. They have people that neither here nor there, members not members of the party. It's an issue that they're dealing with. What do you have to say about that? How do you handle or manage that?
Well, thank you very much, Constance, for that question. I think that I was trying to talk about party ideology. I don't think the political party in Nigeria has an ideology. I don't think they really do that. If they had an ideology, then you could talk about party loyalty. Like he said, there are special purpose vehicles to take people to where they want to. Once they get there, they just implement whatever comes to their mind.
So how do we solve that problem?
We can actually solve that by actually having parties that have an ideology. We should have an ideology. If you look at the West, for instance, where we copy the party politics from, the parties have ideologies. The conservatives are conservatives. The ones that are liberals. Then you know where they stand on every issue. In Nigeria, everybody comes and he does whatever he wants to do. If the parties have no ideology, we can't talk about loyalty. We really can't talk about loyalty. But for anti-party, you mentioned, I believe that anti-party is just, it's in the DNA of the Nigerian politician. It's in the DNA. As long as it suits him. He can be APC today, he can be PDP tomorrow, he can be Labour the other day, and it's fine. It suits them all. That's how their DNA is built.
Right.
So party loyalty in PDP or any other political party in Nigeria, it will come, but it's not there yet. We're not there yet. Sorry to say.
Right. There's this other story that we want to touch on in Kano State. The Kano State governor has set up a judicial commission of inquiry to probe the former governor, who is now the national chairman of the APC, and Abdullahi Ganduje. What's your take on that?
Well, if the action is altruistic, if it is driven by the need for the state, to ensure transparency and accountability in governance, I think it's okay. Nobody can question them in that regard. But if it is driven by the need for political vendetta, or perhaps to get back at the governor with whom he does not share the same political leaning, they belong to different political camp. Otherwise, if that is the motive, maybe to even some score, that used to be very unfortunate, But I also expect that at the time I was thinking that, when the governor took over, there was this gung-ho sort of attitude, this aggression to deal with the previous administration, some of their policies. There were these demolitions in Kano, and of course, it raised some kind of questions around what a lot of people describe as an hostile takeover. And the governor slowed down at a time, in anticipation of the Supreme Court judgment, where there were apprehension over where the judgment will swing. But eventually he got it. The Supreme Court validated his election, after the lower courts had made their own pronouncement. And of course, we thought there was going to be peace, that he won't be looking back anymore. Then suddenly we are seeing these back and forth. But it's okay if it's a regular process, of instilling discipline, transparency, accountability. Then it's all right. But if it is towards political vendetta, of course, the system, shouldn't you know, encourage that, you know, because that's not going to be helpful towards statecraft. And of course, the governor should not also lose sight of his time in office. You know, he's almost a year now. He has 3 years. He has to deliver as well. You know, if he spends the better part of his time, you know, fighting his predecessor, it's not going to be helpful, you know, to the people of the state who are ordinarily very passionate about politics and political processes.
Mr. Ogori, you work for an organization that deals with equity, transparency, and things of that sort. Yes. Some people are of the view that this probe should have been expanded to cover not just the previous government, but other governments. What's your view on that?
Thank you very much. I am 100% in support of that. I believe that justice cannot be selective. I believe that fighting corruption is a very important part of Nigeria. It's something that will put Nigeria on the threshold of greatness and development. We haven't seen progress in this country because of the fact that corruption is very rampant in our society. And any commission of inquiry that is set up to fight corruption should be welcome. But when you go about it with an intention, with a vendetta, and you say you are cherry-picking a particular time frame, just the past immediate government of Ganduje, Umar Ganduje, yes. And you say that's the man I'm going to be probing. Are you simply telling me that there was no corruption since 1999 when Kwankwaso was governor? Or when he had a second spell when the present governor, Abba Yusuf himself, was his commissioner for works, housing and transport? He's been part of this government. Corruption has always been everywhere, just like in Kano State.
So do you believe this is a witch hunt?
It's a witch hunt. There's no doubt about it.
You're saying it certainly.
I am saying that with the way it has been set up, with the way it has been targeted, Constance, you will know that the report of this committee has already been scripted. You now say, I want to probe this particular man from this time to we are aware that they have political differences. They've had political differences, both of them, and somehow the people of Kano have decided and affirmed by the Supreme Court that this man is the governor. I believe he should face governance instead of going after petty. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, Constance. It's a waste of taxpayers.
Prof, is this a waste of taxpayers' money? Also bear in mind, of course, you've mentioned it, there are two governments in contention. So the former governor Kwankwaso is in the NNPP, and that's the same party with the current governor.
Yeah, we've always said it in the past severally that anything that government is going to do to ensure transparency, to bring about productivity and efficiency in government, you know, things like that are very much welcome. You know, and do not forget that the bane of our system is actually the absence of some of these virtues and values that we're talking about. And if we are seeing a state government trying to look back into the state's account, you know, trying to check that the books are okay, it's not really bad if it is well-meaning, and that point has to be underscored. You know, but if it's just because it is this particular person, you know, because you don't like him or because he belongs to a different political party, you know, because you have some score to even, then it becomes problematic. Even though we do know that there have been controversies around the personality in the past, you know, I think to some extent there were some complexities around how it was adjudicated in the judiciary. We're not sure of how it all ended, but there seems to be some quiet around it until this new government came up and brought it up again, you know. So if he actually wants to get to the end of it, you know, in the interest of recovering funds for the people of Kano, welcome development, no doubt. But for the umpteenth time, we just have to make the point that it shouldn't be driven by selfish reasons.
He has asked for the case file from the EFCC to see what the probe was about
again,
in the past.
It's a little bit unique again that a state government is something that we don't often see in this country, which is why it's very suspicious for a state governor to be probing a predecessor. Oftentimes we see the EFCC doing this, you know, but not a state governor, and that's why it's looking suspicious, you know. But again, perhaps we need some more information before we can draw conclusions. You
did point out that it's important that we have transparent systems, because that's the foundation upon which a country can grow. That's true. And you're aware that the national chairman of APC today, All Progressives Congress Party, Abdullahi Ganduje. There was some years back when he was governor, that video, you know, well publicized about the dollar scandal, dollar bribery scandal, you know, and today he is the national chairman. So how would you think about all of this, or you're aware of it, and said that this is a witch hunt against him, is it even right for people to go through this and they still continue in office?
Well, thank you very much for that question, Constance. The fact that you brought it to the front burner shows that you're objective. And it's nice to actually bring it to the front burner. The thing about corruption is that the courts don't believe in hearsay. Evidence cannot be manufactured. We live in an AI-generated world. Things can be done with computers and all that. Videos could be done. Even voice, audio could be done and all that. I am not exonerating the governor or for that. Sorry, the ex-governor. That's the party chairman. I am simply saying that the EFCC has those videos. They did their investigations and nothing came out of it. If somebody is talking about that video, then they should go to court and prove it. These things are provable in court. They should go to court and prove it. Not for a commission of inquiry set up by your successor, who feels that because you are from a different political divide and you had issues, he wants to use the power of a state. This is the height of executive rascality.
But the probe or investigation can also lead to taking the former governor to court. That's part of the reason why, probably.
Then, if it's supposed to be for the benefit of Kano people, it should be holistic. They should go back to 1999. Our job in the Center for Equity and Transparency is to track corruption. From 2011 to 2015, we are aware that 70 million was deducted from each of the 44 local governments of Kano State, amounting to about 3 billion naira that was given to Kwankwaso to run his botched presidential campaigns.
Right.
We are aware that 4 billion was taken from the pensioners fund, that till today, Kano pensioners are still crying for it. Is the governor not aware? He was commissioner then. He was commissioner for works, housing and transport. I've said that before. If he really wants to fight corruption as he is claiming, then he should do it holistically. He should prove it, he should start the probe and include everybody who was governor of Kano State. Fortunately for them in Kano State, all the ex-governors are alive and well. Starting from Kwankwaso to Shekarau to Ganduje himself, and then everybody can be proved properly. But you don't select whom you want to which one because you have an ulterior motive and you bring it to the... I believe that even if the Commission of Inquiry comes with a report that is already premeditated, that I'm sure is already scripted, because every reasonable person can see that it's scripted. Even if they come, I believe that the courts, if the national chairman decides to go to court, I believe that the courts will quash it. He cannot get justice there at all.
Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Adebayo Ogori, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.